Jordan Peterson goes on a rant in this clip that I'm about to play, but it's a very special rant because it's about the planet, the people on it, and who controls it. And I really think that more people in his position, in that famous influencer, intellectual, highly regarded position, need to start talking about, need to start saying. He's the first person that isn't like a conspiracy theorist that I've heard say this type of stuff out loud. And it's really heartwarming, to say the least. This is episode 1933 with Jordan Peterson on the JRE. I'm Coach Colin, coolest high performance coach in the world. If you want the absolute best insights to the podcasts and videos you love, please hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 1,000. Let's go.
The antithesis to that is to believe in something like the intrinsic paradisal stability of well-balanced Mother Nature.
Right.
It's like, yeah, a bit, but no, not really. There's a lot of variability, a lot. And of course, that kind of variability, that's hard on people because you want a certain amount of stability so you don't die.
Right, but it doesn't deny that human beings have an impact on this either.
But no. Well, this is why I really respect Bjorn Lomborg, because Lomborg's hard to grasp because he forces you to think complexly. He says, well, we don't have one problem, carbon dioxide, which is, I don't even think it's clear that carbon dioxide is actually a problem, but we can leave that aside. That'll get me in trouble with the College of Psychologists again. But, Lomborg says,
it's
look,
a factor.
Yeah, it's a factor. Yeah. But there's lots of factors, and God only knows what the most pressing problems that confront us truly are. When I wandered through the ecological sustainability literature about 10 years ago, and, I concluded a couple of things. One was that the best way forward to a sustainable planet is to make everyone who's poor rich as fast as you possibly can.
And that's Lomborg's position,
not
too.
to put limits to growth on, because turns out if you get people above about $5,000 a year in average GDP, they start taking a long-term view of the future instead of scrabbling around in the dirt trying to get lunch, and you're going to burn everything up around you to stay alive if you have to.
Right.
But if you got a bit of wealth and now you can think over, maybe a 20-year period, which is quite the damn luxury, then you actually start being concerned about, the quality, the aesthetic quality of the local environment. And so I was so excited when I found that data because I thought, this is so cool. It means that we could have our cake and eat it too. We could work really hard to provide cheap, reliable energy, at the lowest cost possible to the widest number of people worldwide. And the emergent consequence of that would be the whole planet would clean itself up. So wouldn't that be great? Because we could make our goal the eradication of absolute poverty, which we actually done pretty good at eliminating over the last 15 years, but we could really make that a goal. And then one of the consequences of that, inevitable consequences, would be a greener and healthier planet. And then you think, well, why aren't we doing that? And that's a question, all right. And I think part of the reason is I've been trying to understand the driving ideas underneath this globalist utopian tyranny that seems to be developing from the top down. And I think it's driven at least in part by this religious vision that I already described, that you have to construe culture itself, especially industrial culture, as the tyrannical father raping and pillaging everything in its way, which is an unbelievably dangerous way to think, too one-sided. And the idea that you have to impose limits to growth on people in order to have a sustainable planet. And that's allied with a view that probably stems all the way back to people like Paul Ehrlich in the 1960s, who really believe, truly, that maybe the planet should only have 500 million people on it, or 1 billion, in relative poverty, or 2 billion barely scraping by, because otherwise they're going to be wrecking everything, and controlled by some top-down authority that makes bloody well sure that no one's consuming too much. And so when I look at ideas like that first assumption, the planet has too many people on it, it's like, I don't like to hear people say that, because when I hear that, I think, okay, buddy, who exactly are you thinking about getting rid of? Oh, well, it's not like that. It's like, yeah, it's like that.
It has to be like that.
It is absolutely like that. And so, it's easy to get all paranoid conspiracy theorist about the WEF, say, and maybe there's some utility in that. But, I don't think anybody's sitting at Davos going, well, we got to scrap 7 billion people. But if the underlying narrative is the one I just described, virginal planet, tyrannical patriarchy, and rapacious individual, and you believe, well, we're overpopulated like Paul Ehrlich has believed since really literally the mid-1960s, then how is it not going to be that the policies that you craft stemming from that narrative are colored by the belief that there's far too many people? And like, I've really felt that I've been at war for the last 6 months. And I would say it's war because what I observed happening in Europe when I was there last was that, well, and you can see this, you don't have to be in Europe to see it, but it's more direct if you're there, is that it's pretty damn clear that the globalist utopians are willing to sacrifice the poor for the sake of the planet. And they're doing that by cranking energy prices up through the roof, and that means that people die. Lomberg has estimated that maybe you have to turn your thermostat down by 3 degrees, right? Save the planet. We don't have enough energy. We'll pay you not to use your electricity between 5 and 6, which is what they're doing in the UK. You turn your damn thermostat down 3 degrees, that sounds like nothing. But if you're old, that radically increases the probability that you'll get a respiratory disease and die. And if the Europeans would have had a cold winter, and that could still happen, Lomberg estimated it'd wipe out 135,000 people. It's like, well, we're just making energy more expensive. It's like, what do you mean you're just doing that? So imagine the economic system. It's a pyramid. There's a bunch of people at the top. They have almost all the money. That's par for the course for any productive system. Any system that's productive ends up with a distribution like that. It's like a law of nature. And then you move farther down the pyramid till you get down to the bottom where most of the people are, and they're barely clinging on to the edge of reality, right? It doesn't take much of a crisis to tip them into death. And then you crank up energy prices. Well, what happens is you just take a bunch of those people at the bottom of the distribution, the poor that the left is so, hypothetically concerned with, and they're just done. They go from barely hanging on to not hanging on. And their kids go from having some ghost of a chance of opportunity to having none. And I could see this coming. You really saw it happening in Germany and the UK, where we have this absolute rat's nest of way more expensive energy. And this is where it gets extremely perverse. You might say, okay, look, we have to save the future poor. And so now some of the present poor are going to have to suffer. Well, that's convenient for you if you happen not to be one of those poor people, but let's give the devil his due and say, okay. It's like, that'd be fine with me. Not really. That'd be fine with me if the consequence of your actions, raising energy prices, for example, actually produced an improvement in those things you wanted to improve. So, for example, energy is more expensive, but now the air is cleaner. But that isn't what's happened in Germany.
Right.
What's happened in Germany is energy is like 5 times as expensive, and the coal plants are back on. So it's like, even by your own criteria for success, you failed, and you did it at the expense of the poor. And, the World Bank estimated, I don't remember how many months ago, it's probably 9 months ago, that we're putting 350 million people on the brink of starvation because we're cranking energy prices up. And so for me, it's like, that's 350 million people. That's 3 times as many as the communists killed, in their 6 decades of trying. And if your cure for the planet is, well, we got to put 350 million poor people in jeopardy just so that things are hypothetically better in 100 years, I think, yeah, I don't think so, buddy. And also, it's a little bit too convenient for me that your prescriptions to save the planet are accompanied by this insistence that the only way forward to that is to give you all the power. It's like, there's a bit of a moral hazard in that, don't you think? It's like, I'm just saving the planet. Give me all the power. It's like, you want to save the planet, or do you want the power? And let's put the second one first, because the probability that you're a saint or the Messiah is pretty damn low.
Fuck. That is just, man, that is, again, I wish more people in his position would say things like that, because, or at least, like, look at the data and talk about it, like, constructively. I've heard over the years, so many people be like, yo, bro, they want to get rid of all the people, 500 million people. People always say it. You've heard Eddie Bravo on Joe Rogan's podcast talk about stuff, but to have somebody break it down very eloquently and just like fact after fact after fact, just factual stuff, is just beautiful, because it's finally a voice that can't be dismissed as crazy. You know, and with the things that he's brought up, it's like, it's so true. It's like, again, like I said it in my last video about Jordan Peterson's announcement, it's like, who are they trying to benefit? Because it's not the majority of people. It seems like it's just, you know, for sake of a better, you know, term, the elite, you know, or the super rich, or like the whatever you want to call it. But it doesn't seem like it's everybody, you know? And yeah, I'm just so happy that somebody finally said this and touched on the fact of the 500 million people, because that is a thing. Like, if you look into that, the gentleman that he keeps mentioning, this gentleman's been talking about that for so long, you know, and again, not to get demonetized or you know, I'm not even up for monetization yet. Maybe I don't know. But, you know, there's a whole agenda of depopulation. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to be this conspiracy theorist thinking that there's all these people in the shadows just lurking around. But it's like, why are you doing the things that you're doing? It's not benefiting everybody. And where are the plans that benefit everybody? It seems like what happens more so is that they rile everybody up and they pull a big majority of people that are all riled up onto their side. But even the people who are on their side, when it comes to, you know, picking sides left and right, whatever it may be, you know, climate, you know, with climate change, don't believe in climate change, whatever it is, the sides, the people who are fighting aren't the ones that are going to benefit either way. I don't know. So I'm hoping, you know, always hoping, just like everybody who's listening to this is hoping for a brighter future, but it won't come until we start approaching these subjects with as much, you'd hope, as much as Dr. Peterson, in terms of thinking things through, trying to be as eloquent as possible, trying to leave your emotions out of it as much as possible, and just speaking truth. Yeah. I don't know, man. I really hope, I hope that he's able to do something. And I hope that whoever is willing to help in the world is willing to help and does. Because, again, where are all the people benefiting us? Where are all the government officials who are benefiting us? It doesn't seem like there's any. It seems like there's always somebody just lining their pockets or looking to get elected or have some kind of thing that they're like, you know, have just bought stock in a company and that's why they're allowing this thing to get sprayed or these people to get, like, it's just, I don't know, man. It seems like a very dark future if you look into, again, the World Economic Forum and you know, the whole 500 million people thing that he's talking about and the energy prices and all of that stuff. It looks like it's dark. And it's like, it doesn't affect you right now, right? Because you're not one of those people. You're not one of those people starving in the streets. But it's like, it inches up. It's like, first it's those people who are just like homeless and like ne'er-do-wells. But then when they're all gone, then what happens? Well, then it's just the people who are, you know, at some point, you know, not starving, but they're living check to check. But then what happens when all those people go? And then it's just these people, and then those people go, and then it's just these people, and then I don't know. I'm not saying stand up and fight, but I'm definitely saying stand up and think. I'm out.